Historic Preservation Program. I've been continually introduced here for about the last 4 or 5 weeks as quote to Rachel. And I think that's more of a compliment for Rachel. So I've been filling some big shoes, but she left me a great roadmap to follow, and I am especially honored that she is here with us today. And I want to particularly thank Jennifer Carmen, the owner of this wonderful home, for inviting us into her home today. Don't find a lot of homeowners who will come and invite or at least give the invitation for 70 to 100 strangers to come through their homes. So this is a real treat, especially for those of us who appreciate the history, culture, and heritage of our historic neighborhoods in downtown Little Rock. So, again, thank you, Jennifer, for allowing us to tour your amazingly beautiful home. I was absolutely struck with it the first time that I came through. In fact, I got to walk through here in what I think was my 3rd day on the job. So, I was informed that the first day I walked in, well, you got probably about 2.5 months worth to do, and probably just got a few days to do it. So not only have we gotten a good tour schedule this year, but as of yesterday, the Sandwiching and History tours have been finalized for 2017. Okay, also, your tour today is for 1 hour of HSW continuing education credit through the American Institute of Architects. So please see me after the tour if you're interested in that credit. Now, let's tell you a little bit about the home, a little bit about the history of it, and then basically we're going to turn you loose and to ask whatever questions, make whatever observations that you would like to. But at the same time, we're going to give you some background before we do so. This home is located in the Central High School Neighborhood Historic District, and it is actually under what is called Boundary Increase 2, listed in the National Register on June the 4th, 2012. This was not in the original boundaries that was set during the 1970s. The house itself, this is the John F. Weinmann House, built in 1917. And was built in Tudor Revival style with craftsman influences. Again, it expands the boundary of the Central High School Historic District, which was first listed on the National Register in 1996 and then amended in 1997 and 2004 to include the contiguous historic development on the east side of the present district, which comprised beforehand the Wright Avenue Neighborhood Association. The entire district is part of Section 9, Township 1 North, Range 12 West, which was originally known as the Centennial Addition. It encompasses the northeast portion of Section 9, and Centennial Addition, in fact, is the largest of the additions in Section 9. This was part of a 160-acre parcel of land that was originally granted to William Wilson by the United States government in a land patent dated June 24th, 1811, back when we were still a territory. In October 1834, Wilson and his wife, Eliza, sold the land for $400 to Benjamin Johnson. $400 for 160 acres? Let me in on that. Okay? That would be a land office deal. Now, 33 years later, a judgment was rendered in Pulaski County Circuit Court against Matilda Johnson, who was Benjamin Johnson's widow, in what was called a contract of trust. Now, I don't know if we have any lawyers in the audience, if we do, you can explain to me what a contract of trust is. But it transferred the ownership of the land to Ambrose Sevier, one of the chief architects of the early political establishment in Arkansas known as the family. And Sevier, of course, had become a player in this community soon after his move to Little Rock in 1821. He would represent Pulaski in the legislature and in the Arkansas Territory in Congress, and would become one of Arkansas's first United States senators. Now, John Weinmann, who had this home built in 1917, kind of coincides with my partner Mark Frist's timeline with the World War I Centennial Commission. John Weinmann was one of the largest millers in the region. In fact, Mr. Weinmann made his fortune in not only acquiring flour and grain mills, but acquiring a large network of them. He would expand his holdings from about 1919 when he and his partner Guy Williams would purchase the Marco mills of Pine Bluff. He would eventually merge his holdings with Edward Brown, and the company would be known by its current name, Arkansas Mill Supply Company, which is still based in Pine Bluff. Weinmann would marry Jeannie Fox of Little Rock, and she would raise her son, Cecil, by her first marriage. I don't know whether her first marriage ended either in divorce or if the first husband passed away. I've not been able to find any evidence of that. She did have a long history of civic and social involvement, most notably with the National Society of the United States Daughters of the War of 1812, where she served for many years as President National. She was also active in the United Daughters of Confederacy, where she would serve as President General in the late 1940s. Ms. Weinmann will also serve as President of the Thomas J. Churchill chapter of the United Daughters of Confederacy, the Chevalier Commander of the Order of Lafayette in Arkansas, and a member of the Mary Washington Memorial Association. But probably the most distinguished honor which was bestowed upon her was her election to life membership in the Société Académique d'Histoire Internationale. And if you think my French is crappy, you're right. It was a bit embarrassing. Pardon me? Thank you. Up to that point in time, she was the only American woman to have been accorded election to that body, which, as I researched, it was an extremely high honor among both professional and amateur historians. She was also long active in the Arkansas Historical Association, helping to establish the Arkansas Historical Quarterly in 1942, and would serve as president of the association from 1953 to 1955. Keeping with her long-standing interest in the War of 1812, Jeannie presented a paper which was the last of the 1953 state session called When the War of 1812 Moved into Arkansas, which emphasized the part that the War of 1812 played on some of the most important figures in early Arkansas history. She'd also served as a member of the Arkansas History Commission until her death in 1962, and is buried next to her husband in historic Mount Holly Cemetery. Now, the Weinmann home was once the social hub of what was in their day a very prosperous and prominent neighborhood in the capital city. And when you walk around through the house, you can literally picture in your mind the kind of entertaining and social hub that this house once was. The Centennial History of Arkansas would describe Jeannie Weinmann as a person who, and I quote, resides with most gracious hospitality over her beautiful home, but is not a society woman in the usually accepted sense of the term. She is keenly interested in those affairs which make for better citizenship and the promotion of civic interest. She is keenly interested in the vital questions and problems of the day, and especially those things which have to do with the advancement of civic standards and ideals in Little Rock. Certainly we use a lot of that today. Okay? Jeannie Weinmann provided her home extensively to host organizations such as the United States Daughters of 1812, the Arkansas Historical Association, the United Daughters of the Confederacy, as well as local groups like the Little Rock Junior Auxiliary and the Junior League of Little Rock. It is also believed on good authority, and Jennifer and I have had this discussion kind of back and forth as to who likely was the architect of the Weinmann House, and the most likely answer we have found, it was probably Theodore Sanders, who also designed the Cornish House at 1800 Arch Street, the Ada Thompson Memorial Home, the Women's City Club building, and the Cornish House, well, I said the Cornish House a little while. In his education in architectural design at the Beaux-Arts Institute of Design in Paris, France, he was trained in the eclectic movement which advocated mixing traditional architectural styles to create new designs. You're going to see those particular contrasts when you tour this home. He was a partner in the Thompson, Sanders, and Ginocchio firm, which continues to operate in the 21st century as Cromwell Architects Engineers. The Weinmanns lived here until around 1940, when they relocated to 8 Edge Hill Road. The home was owned for many years by a man named Alf Bonds, then by Bell Harrison until 1956, until it was purchased by Sid Lawson. The home was listed as vacant in 1958 and 59, and then had multiple occupants from 1960 onward. And when I did this research, it's amazing what you glean from the Little Rock City Directory. Several periods were listed as vacant or no return, and for many years it was a multiple turnover in occupancy. Now, when you come into the front of the home, which again built in the Tudor Revival style, as I mentioned earlier, was strongly influenced by the Craftsman design, which is prevalent throughout the homes in the neighborhood, as you can tell. Excuse me. The American Craftsman style, along with a wide variety of related but conceptually distinct European design movements, developed out of the British arts and crafts movement that was going on since the 1860s. A libertarian socialist named William Morris founded the British movement as a reaction against the Industrial Revolution's perceived devaluation of the individual worker and resulting degradation of the dignity of human labor. The movement naturally emphasized handwork over mass production, with the problem that expensive materials and costly skilled labor restricted acquisition of arts and crafts productions to a wealthy clientele who were primarily known as, quote, champagne socialists. Okay? While the British movement also reacted against the eclectic Victorian, what was called over-decorated aesthetic, the arts and crafts styles of American arrival coincided with the decline of the Victorian era. The American arts and crafts movement shared the British movement's reform philosophy, encouraging originality, simplicity of form, local natural materials, and the visibility of handicraft, but distinguished itself, particularly in the craftsman style, with the goal of ennobling modest homes for a rapidly expanding American middle class. In the late 1890s, a group of Boston's more influential architects, designers, and educators was determined to bring the design reforms begun into America. In the United States, the arts and crafts style incorporated locally handcrafted wood, glass, and metalwork, creating objects that were both simple and elegant. You're going to see examples of that throughout the home. Okay. In architecture, reacting to both Victorian architectural opulence and increasingly common mass-produced housing, the style incorporated a visual, sturdy structure of clean lines and natural materials. The movement's name, American Craftsman, came from popular magazine The Craftsman, founded in 1901 by philosopher, designer, furniture maker, and editor Gustav Strictly. The magazine featured original house and furniture designs by Harvey Ellis, the Green and Green Company, and others. The designs, while influenced by the ideals of the British movement, found inspiration in specifically American antecedents such as the Shaker furniture and Mission Revival style, as well as the Anglo-Japanese style. Emphasis on the originality of the artists and craftsmen led to the later design concepts of the 1930s Art Deco movement. With the large bays, turrets, and rear wing removed, the front porch simplified, and the ceilings lowered somewhat in comparison to most Victorian models, it is not difficult to see how the American craftsman developed from the common American Queen Anne. The middle-class housewife of the era, would have not had domestic servants, at least not live-in ones, and would be doing much, if not all, the housework herself, as well as watching the children. These added roles made it important that the kitchen be integrated into the main house with easy sight lines to the common areas of the main floor, being mainly the dining and living room, as well as into the backyard. Commonly, the butler's pantry in the Victorian era was replaced with dining room cabinetry that often consisted of built-ins, which gave home designers the opportunity to incorporate wood and glass craftsmanship into the public aspects of the home. Another common design arising from the class shift of the time was the built-in breakfast nook in the kitchen, and you'll see that it is very prominent in this home. The Victorian kitchen of the previous era was separated from family view and the daily routine. It typically had a work table having the equivalent purpose of a modern countertop, but yet the Victorian kitchen had no, quote, proper place for a family member to sit, eat, or do anything else. It was more form over function. Again, as the housewife of the craftsman era was now preparing the family meals rather than the servants, the Victorian kitchen gave way to one that was designed as the heart of the family's daily life. The breakfast nook, often placed under a window or in its own bay, provided a place for the family to gather at any time of the day or evening, particularly when food was being prepared. Now, when you come in, you're going to notice that, and you probably already have, that the combination of Tudor and Craftsman influences are readily apparent. Unlike the previously dominant colonial revival cottages, which featured stained shingle walls, steep roofs, and classical ornament, this home combines a mix of brick, stucco, and wood. The stucco on the upper level is the chief carryover of the Tudor influence. The only real continuity with the colonial revival is the steep roof with the green rounded concrete ceramic tiles. From the rear of the home, a contrast in the roofing tile is readily apparent as the concrete tiles prevalent on much of the property contrast with the shingles on the roof over the kitchen addition, as you'll be able to see in the back. As the shingles were much more appropriate for a roof with a lower pitch, as is indicated by that addition. Jennifer pointed out to me that the blonde matte brick with the shiny green roof is such a nice contrast. And I would certainly agree as well. As well as the overall proportions of the home, both front and rear. If you'll notice, however, on the front overhang, the original rafter design is not visible under the current guttering. Jennifer explained to me that it was under consideration at one point to remove the guttering. I'm right about that, right? But there was no reasonable assurance that future deterioration through water seepage could be avoided once they were exposed. About 2009, the house was remodeled by Paul Hastings, who has rehabbed several homes downtown. In fact, this home once housed the ministries of St. Francis House. On the top floor, you're going to see another amazing feature of this home, and it's one of the things that really got me kind of excited when we walked through here before. And that is the sleeping porch on the south side. Now this is what's really amazing. It just makes me completely envious of Jennifer. It offers an amazing bird's eye view of the neighborhood, and more so after the leaves have fallen. You can just imagine that, even though a lot of the leaves are still up because of our warm weather. But it should certainly be considered that this was one of the favorite room of the families that called this house home. And certainly that way for Jennifer, she gets more excited talking about that. I thought it was just about any whole house. And rightfully so. I'd almost think though myself that the second favorite part would have to be the wonderful kitchen and breakfast nook, which had one unique feature. The current pantry is new. Thank you for coming today, and please join us for our final sandwiching and history tour on December 2nd at Trinity Episcopal Cathedral at 310 West 17th Street. Hope you get to come, and thank you all for coming. Carmen? Where? Come right up here. And who was your dad?
Bob Scott, Terry Scott. I was hoping you were going to say my grandmother's name, but I think you stopped right before you were about to do the owners. But I think in the 60s, they owned this house for about a decade or so. And they went to high school at Central. I can't tell you the years they graduated, but if you grew up in this neighborhood and you know the Scotts, I would definitely like to meet you on their behalf. They could come out, but I'm excited. My grandmother's name was Susan Scott. Wonderful, wonderful woman. She kept the party going like Mrs. Winnemeyer did. So anything you was on to eat, she just did the same thing. This was the party homie.
W.R. Scott, 1960.
Yeah.
Is that
That,
your...
well, that would have been my somebody. Maybe. Yeah. But yeah, my dad slipped in the it was him and two women, so he got the better end of the name.
Oh, well. Sound like a competition going on. Folks, you're welcome to come in. And again, thank you all for coming.